full animal.
Understand, because my son-in-law is a bone-in
that-
meat that would be cooked is different than, like,
Yes.
you don't want it for carving or
Right.
trophy purposes or something.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Got it. I'm always curious about the background of these policies.
Yeah. It was really fun. It was second time I've been moose. 3 moose for
Pretty good.
a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
moose.
And you must love the meat.
Yes, it's really good.
Well, I think it's that time.
Could be.
Okay, we will start the October Parks Commission meeting.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the me show. I mean, hopefully we have good discussions and conversations, but you gotta listen to me for a long time. So we'll see if other people join us as we go on, but we're going to talk about summer park usage, a little bit an update on all of our projects, revisit our discussion from back in May when we talked about that park entry sign and how much you all loved our concepts. Thank you. That was a joke. Want to talk about community garden, the starts of discussion on replacing our playground, and this anything else kind of open at the end for other questions, comments, other discussion. So busy summer. Just want to point out this usage doesn't include any Play East. So Play East was here a lot with their camps, their programming, summer lunch program, which ran through like the first week in July through the second week of August. And that drew a lot of people for that lunch program. So these are non-Play East related reservations. So 81 total. The bulk of them were for the picnic shelter, not a surprise, followed by the multi-purpose field, 3 at the amphitheater, which is great, and just 1 at the gazebo, which is probably a future discussion of how to better program that facility, but we don't need to discuss it tonight. It lacks tables, it lacks lighting, it just kind of lacks. But again, future discussion. Majority birthday parties, again, not really surprising. Family gatherings, baby showers. I believe we had 1 wedding this past summer. And 3 public events. So we let the park out for kind of private nonprofit groups to use for a public event. That was Run for the Red, done by Emilio Inc. And that was about kind of teen mental health awareness, and that kind of thing. World No Tobacco Day. I believe in your report I put World Tobacco Day. It was actually no tobacco.
It's not the World Tobacco Day.
And then a book signing, and that was one of the ones done in the amphitheater. So that was pretty neat. The bulk of these were no cost because they were private individuals, less than 100 people. So the policy is you can reserve a facility at no cost. A lot of great feedback. People really like the amenities here. So overall, it was a busy, good summer. Splash Pad, another busy event. So we opened up in May. Slight delay from what we wanted to. We had reapplied the anti-skid treatment. Bad batch. It made it slippery as ice. And so instead of having it open for that weekend, we closed it because I figured I'd rather explain to people why we closed it than to explain why their child is missing their front teeth or has a broken arm. So luckily the rep came out the following week, got a new batch, and luckily that second one made it really nice. So we had that open through September. Learned how to set a timer because before it was just kind of on if you press the button, but now it doesn't turn on before 8 a.m. or doesn't turn on after 10 p.m. So kind of mirroring, reasonable park hours. And we used just over 750,000 gallons through this. So the splash pad uses about 35 gallons per minute. That can vary a little bit. So that's how we ran down, the hours and button presses. So if it runs for 5 minutes at 35 gallons, that's 366 hours of fun. So yeah, and I think we could all attest. It was busy every single day. But when we talk to people, they love it. It's a fairly simplistic one, but they like the adjacent shade. They like how it's more of a neighborhood feel. So we get people from Gresham, Portland, who hear about it and come to check it out. So it's great. So now, some updates on multiple projects. So this is our CDBG grant project, which will do an enhanced picnic area in this grove out here with a new ADA ramp. So the design is ongoing right now. We're told we'll have the final one by December 18th. And it'll be great. We could put out to bid in January for construction by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. So this is the splash pad wall right there, kind of familiarized with the grove. Most likely because of the grading and trying to, not disturb the tree roots, the ADA pathway will kind of meander through this part of it, trying to connect down by the restroom and the other ADA access there. And then we're going to plunk. So we got, picnic table there to replace, one there to add, and we'll add a few other picnic tables dotted throughout the shady part of the grove. And we're also going to add a couple of benches just the other side of the splash pad wall, out of the splash zone. So
Yeah.
hopefully, we get the design in and some competitive bids so we can get that design and built out. Speaking of design and built out, so bid opening round 2 for the restrooms is this Wednesday. We're a little more optimistic this time for a couple reasons. One, it's a less tight construction schedule. So when we bid it last springtime, it was a June 30 deadline. So it was, 6 or 8 weeks. That's pretty tight. The architect also at that time included is called an AIA manual with this project, which is what we had with this building. It's very specific in terms of, the concrete and anchors and it's a bathroom. So we read through all 500 pages and went, most of these reasonable contractor is going to do this work. So we pulled that manual since there were a lot of questions and concerns from last time. So between the longer construction period, kind of the lesser busy construction period, and pulling that manual, we're hopeful we'll get bids, around our budget. And I kind of put there 525. So the budget's actually 500. But we did add some money for additional lighting, and this does have additional lighting on it, not shown in the rendering here. So we have about that much to play with. So we're optimistic, and it will be in this week's weekly update on those bid results. So stay tuned.
How's the outside as far as graffiti goes?
We have a spec with the anti-graffiti coating. And so it is a color infused CMU block. But that tends to be pretty resilient as well with the coating too. Our wetland park, great news on this one. So we received a $20,000 community enhancement grant, which is great. That's helping pay for half of our updated delineation report. We have a $250,000 nature neighborhoods grant from Metro. That was a competitive grant amongst, I think it was 18 projects in that finalist list. We got this one a little earlier this summer. And just learned last week, they did release our local share money. So with that recent Metro Parks bond by recent, I think it was 2019, every jurisdiction inside Metro got what's called local share, but that local share has to match certain Metro requirements. So we had to put in an application and we just got notice this met all the requirements. So we released our $392,000 towards the project. So our grant funds with city funds, we have about $762,000 for the project. Oh, it's just a ghost. It's cool.
The kid out there
I
playing
think it
perhaps.
is, yeah. We're calling it phase 1 because early engineers estimates had about $1 million total for this project. So we're hopeful that we can at least get the wetland part restored with new plantings, that boardwalk, but things like the unrestricted space, gateways, more of the signage may have to wait till a later phase. One thing we are doing is working with both the Grand Ron and I forget the organization out of Portland, but looking at native plants. So swapping out some of the ones that we had with more native plants that are more culturally important. We thought that'd be a neat aspect to include in the project and also with the educational components. And as I said, we have to update our delineation because it's more than 5 years old. So we're doing an updated delineation report as well as the archaeological study. Figure might as well do that because most of our projects require an archaeological survey. Our CDBG one did, they found nothing. I think actually some bottle caps and broken glass. Joking about the broken glass, we do a very good job here at cleaning up.
Hey, Greg, are the Grand Ron people going to put up any cultural
I think
Think
that's,
in the wetland.
I think that's the hope. For those, just a reminder of what the current project is. So here's a rata up here, Woodville's Boulevard. All this is plantings. We've talked with them about helping with that native plant list, interpretive panels, maybe some type of art or some components with that. I think, let me just go to this next slide. So again, for reference, Rata Wood Boulevard, we have half of that open space. I think the bigger picture is whatever may develop here in the future, links in, supplement, supports the wetland project. But yeah, they were supportive of all of our grant applications, which really helps in the competitive nature of those. So they've been a great partner. And so we hope to start the restoration work this summer. Because it is a wetland and there's in-season work. And so we're very hopeful we can, again, get some good competitive bids and start kind of phase one, or as much as the project as possible is the goal.
Craig, can I ask a question about that? You mentioned in your notes that that there'll be some community engagement work.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever had a park commission member be a liaison to that. I know city commission, the council members are often liaisons. I would love to work on that project if.
Yeah, I don't think there would have really in restrictions. Kind of the initial concepts are to work on, what do we want for the gateway elements? What do we want for that? Hopefully the unrestricted space stays about the same. It may shift a little bit based on the updated delineation, but what are those features? What are the educational panels? And so what's worked out well in the past when we've done larger workshops is, people table a
Stations.
table,
Mhm.
or talk about it, directly hear the input and the feedback. And, the goal is to start some of this maybe after the first year. Again, we want that updated delineation first, so we really know what we're working with, as well as set a realistic timeline. That's the other thing, letting people know, like, we're restoring wetlands first. Some of these fun things may come a little later, but we want to know what you consider fun and meaningful. The other thing we want to do are community planting days. So as we're getting a contractor to grub it all, once you don't want, I don't want to do that work. Select days, select areas where then community members come and actually help plant the plants and create that sense of community ownership. And so, 10 years, go by like, oh yeah, I planted that. I was a part of that. So details upcoming. But yes, we will certainly keep the Parks Commission updated in the loop, and certainly your interest in assisting is very open. All right. Park entry sign. So this is the area we talked about. So as you pull into City Hall in the park, it's just this open space right here. Originally, I think the thought was looking at directory signage. Then in discussions with you all, ask great questions like, well, directory for who? Is it for cars? Is it for people? We kind of showed some prefabricated options, and nothing was hitting. Just honestly, like the more we dug into it, the more, what do you do with this space, if anything at all? So staff's just been talking and bringing it back to you all. Do we do some type of signage, and if we do, what? Is it a place for art? Is it a place around the park feature, or just leave it alone? So again, a little close-up image of the particular area, and just want to point out, it's possible to get electricity to it. Not really for water. So, elaborate garden features, it would be very difficult. But if, thinking lighting or some sort of electric need, possibility. In doing some quick renderings, don't judge my artistic ability, statuary, is it something representing the city's World War II heritage? Is it people playing in a park? Is it some sort of modern art or a thing? Or is it just leave it alone? And just a quick note on budget, we rolled over a little bit of funds. I believe it was about $6,000 if we want to do some signage, because that's what some of the signage, the prefab signage was coming in at. But there aren't funds set aside for art, sculptures, other park amenities at this time. But we wanted to bring this back since you've all had some time to think about it. And just, what are your thoughts? So I'm going to pause right there. And what are your thoughts?
I have a thought. I'd say do nothing for now and wait until a time when someone passes away, for example, and we want to do an honorary site, or, I don't know, one of our scholarship graduates is an art student, so that's inspires an art contest, or there could be a lot of other things that happen in the future. There's like, great, let's use that site for that activity or result.
How do you turn this on?
Oh,
It's on.
Oh, it's on.
on, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
The green light is on.
Oh, great, okay. So I joined this group kind of in the middle of this, so I guess my basic question is, what is the purpose? I mean, what was the stated need when this all came up?
I think part of it was at the time, the city hall and its amenities were still relatively new. And I think the thought would be to help as people enter the park, understand it's still a park. It's also city hall and there's, one of the same, and to help say direct people of, oh, here's like traditional park facilities, here's city hall, here's a splash pad. But it certainly seems like people have figured it out since then.
Well, there's that big sign right in the back there left.
Yep, there's a sign here, and just add a picture to the left is the other,
Yeah.
welcome Don Robinson Park sign. Address numbers on the front. I think this is one of those things that early on I thought, oh, some sort of directory might be beneficial, but as we've been here now a few years, the only thing I could see that would be beneficial, go to the airport, it says how many parking spaces are left.
I mean, it could sit,
Yeah,
like say until, some. I think we talked about signage directions and stuff early.
Yeah,
Okay, hey, go there, but like you say. Out and we have tons of. Art.
get it out.
Yeah, it's not like we need to.
I mean, given what I'm hearing, I think I agree. We either leave it as it is or maybe incorporate a piece of really lovely art that would also speak to being kind of natural.
And I think, that's nothing wrong with leaving it as is, and as opportunities or things
Right.
come up to take advantage of, hey, we have this spot. So saying leave it as is perfectly fine.
Let's spend the money on something else.
Oh, like the other projects coming up.
There you go.
Speaking of which, community garden. So I'm going to do a quick history and then walk through where we've been the last few months, and then again, hopefully a nice discussion. So city had a community garden at our old city hall from 2010 to 2017. Back then we had 25 10 by 10 plots. They were plots, weren't raised beds. They were essentially mounds. Originally, I think for the first 2 years, it was $20 per plot. Why $20? That is the maximum you can charge and still retain what's called recreational immunity. So it provides immunity to the city. But that second year, we had like 3 people rent a plot. And so when we said there is no charge, we had a lot more interest back in it. And so typically, 25 plots, most of them were always full, about 12 to 15 gardeners. Several gardeners had multiple plots. This is a pretty accurate picture of how it would be kind of throughout the year. I know, Councilor Smith, you were an avid gardener. I mean, certainly some seasons were a little better than others.
Yeah, it's just that sometimes people get tired of
Yeah.
doing it and they
just walked
let
away.
it go to pot, not literally pot.
This was actually a fairly accurate representation with some of the challenges we've had. So we want to take lessons learned from this and apply them to what we want to do moving forward. So what's moving forward? Well, there's been renewed interest in the garden, especially the last couple of years. So in this current year's budget, there's $12,000. It sounds like a lot of money, and frankly, 12,000 is, but it doesn't go very far when you're trying to build a thing. And so hopefully tonight we get kind of your preferences, your priorities, and what a garden space looks like. And we'll start with location. And as you saw in your packet, you may think, oh, it kind of seems settled on location, but I want to walk through some of the selection criteria, kind of why we landed on where we did, but also get your feedback on that. So it needed to be city owned because, we need to own it. Accessible. By both accessible, that means how do you get to it? Is there parking? How do people walk to it? Is it ADA accessible? Kind of everything we think accessibility. Definitely needs to have natural light. Plants like that. Safety, and safety again, kind of all encompassing safety of the gardeners or sense of safety, safety of the plants when people aren't there, and then water availability. So we looked at a few locations, Hawthorne or Edible Grove, and just kind of here behind City Hall. So Hawthorne, I know a couple of you are very familiar with Hawthorne, and we have this area back here that's essentially just open space. We tend to put our park debris there, much to my chagrin, working on that.
Yeah.
But it's a nice little trailhead feature, has open space, water availability, but Hawthorne's a challenging dead end street. And so people coming and going could be challenging for the neighbors historically. And this goes back 30 years of this site, you know, it's just been a challenging for access and parking and turnaround. So like, well, you know, Hawthorne is probably not the best. Our Edible Grove, which is in this portion of the park. So City Hall would be, you know, further up in the upper left. We got the amphitheater. So we have our Edible Grove, which is our raised beds plus all the trees. We kind of thought, gee, if we try to mix a private community garden with, hey, take these things for free, that might confuse people. So then we came up with kind of behind City Hall. And in looking at that, we wanted to do a few things. One, make sure that the multi-use field can remain multi-use and lots of activities, whether it be for sporting, private events, but also events at City Hall where we may use, I call it the back lawn. And so we actually had a representative from Outgrowing Hunger out, who they run a lot of large community gardens, almost community farms in some aspects. I think they wanted to use the whole multi-use field.
Of course they did.
But, you know, thought behind City Hall was quite practical. And so we started looking at, so along here, you know, the trail goes along the fence line, and then we've planted the new trees kind of along here. And we thought, well, if we relocate the trail just a little further east, neighbors might not mind that, but that then can create some space for raised beds without really impacting, you know, the back lawn or the playability of the field. This particular rendering is one of our favorites. You had several in your packet, but this allows, I think, for scalability where we start a little bit small, kind of manageable, still close to City Hall, and we're only relocating part of the trail to go around it. Then it meets back up and it continues on, but want to pause here, talk about locations. Did we miss any locations? Other thoughts about locations? How do you feel about this location?
Well, if it gets out of control, it's gonna look a little
Messy.
messy.
If there's going to be raised beds, though, look less messy.
That's, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk about the beds and next, but yeah, the goal is not mounds this time.
But it would be
And I think a little more managed.
a little more manageable at location and and it coming up and, or maybe it will. Oh, hey, there's tomatoes over there.
I think the idea is some
Waiting
kind of
for that.
fencing, some kind of signage. We do have cameras on the building, not that it would really, you know, find who did it, but hopefully just kind of deters, you know, keep people honest.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and, you know, you have maybe a table or something outside the garden that gardeners can put their excess and people can
Yeah.
glean from.
Could we maybe, if a bed's looking really bad, could we maybe give them a phone call and say, do you need some help on that?
Yeah, we have some
You know,
thoughts about
from being, you know.
the
like
management
trailer
of it.
trash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I said kind of learning lessons learned from last time.
yeah, yeah.
I was involved with the community garden in Gresham, and we had to apply for it every year, even though we had, you know, some of us had an established space. We still had to commit to that space and to maintaining it and,
Mhm.
you know, and also taking care of it when the growing season's done. So,
Yeah, there's I think a lot of work's been done in the community garden space in the last 7 years since we got out of it, especially about very clear expectations like, oh, maybe you do just grow for part of a season. Well, then that means you clear it out, and whether you winterize it or just make it available to the next person. There's a lot to borrow from.
just in this drawing, it shows 12 raised beds. What size are they? Are they
You
like
know-
your standard 7x10 kind of, or?
we were thinking 4x8s. That tends to be, I mean, when you think garden plots, it's relatively small. For a lot of community gardens, I say a number of them, it's close to a standard size. It also, when you're thinking of a pre-manufactured raised bed, that's kind of the largest ones they make.
Mhm.
So we were thinking 4x8, obviously, I mean, happy to have that dialogue of, and let's just go right into beds then. If there are no more questions about kind of location, and again, this can be very flexible as we kind of continue, you can continue moving east if we want to make beds a little larger or just more beds.
One day you and I were even out there, I think, chatting about this, and it was shady at the time because the neighbor, or I don't know if it's city vegetation or neighbor's vegetation, is really
The big
tall.
trees right there,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I know it's the time of the year and time of day perhaps, but I guess
Mhm.
if it could be a little further east, we would just guarantee better sun. That's all.
Yeah, I had that thought too, because when I walk by there, I also look at the ivy. There's a huge ivy growth there, but yeah, there's that fence and then there's all that,
And this could,
vegetation
Property looks
heaped over
terrible.
and then you got a tree and it's like,
yeah, so the whole
I
thing
agree
could
with
actually
you.
would probably shift a little further south.
Yeah, that would get
That'd
into
be-
more sun also.
Yeah, because we want to be
Mhm.
away from the city trees here in this corner. And,
Yeah.
but it gets great morning and certainly afternoon sun.
yeah, it's just the evening. or-
It's actually part of the reason why we planted trees along here is for evening sporting events. The sun doesn't really clear out till 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly as you're getting closer to fall or early spring, it can be challenging.
Do you want to talk about the trail then now, given this design, or will we come back to the trail later?
I'm happy to take comments on it now, kind of the relocating of it
Yeah.
around it. Yeah.
Two thoughts come to mind. Straight lines are generally less appealing. I mean, even in your wetlands park, remember we talked last about the curve?
Yep.
Because then your view is always changing and it's just a more pleasant and meaningful experience when you're walking on a curve versus on a straight line.
Yeah, that's
The
interesting.
second thing that concerns me the most, I guess, depending on where the path actually lands, is that as you're cruising along and then you turn right, you're going to be facing right into a private property.
Oh, maybe angling it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Or curving or something, so that
Right.
you spend
Oh,
very
okay.
few steps.
Maybe-
Yeah, I mean, we
Facing
Maybe
into
take like a
the,
45
Yeah, I mean, we
degree
can
angle.
soften.
much
But
softened, yeah.
don't you walk right by the private property now?
Yeah, but you don't necessarily go
Like face it right at it.
face right at it,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Even
can
from
soften the
from
turns.
kind of-
for
Softening the
sure.
curves, I think, would help a lot. And maybe get it closer to those trees. If those trees are an investment.
Oh, yeah,
or-
the idea would be the trail would be just to the west of the tree line.
But much closer to the trees than it is
Correct.
now.
Oh, yeah.
This looks like it's right against the fence line.
Well, because this is the existing trail.
Okay.
So along here, we just tie it back into the existing. We wouldn't move all of the trail. Unless someday the garden really takes off and, a
But
big
just
community
Soften that
piece.
curve so that you're not walking right into,
Yeah.
facing into somebody's property.
Yep, we can do a little thing.
Meander it through there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Just in general, though, acceptable.
I think I like it.
Of the choices.
Yeah, I do. I think
Um,
it-
yeah, while we're speaking about this end of the park, the trees are really they don't seem to be flourishing there.
Trees, I think they're struggling from the heat dome from, was it 20 or 21?
Mhm.
All of 20 was a blur to me. So we're seeing that region wide. I think they're feeling the effects of those heat effects from a few years ago.
Screen.
We are having the county assess trees on Wood Village Boulevard. And it's something I think we've been talking about here is let's look at some of our other trees that seem to be
Kept the trail way
Yeah.
a little
out.
iffy.
Didn't-
Right. I mean, I'm wondering if you put in more native trees rather than the ornamentals, whether they would do better.
Yeah, I don't know when those were put in, but it was well before my times. So yeah, we'll talk about the bed types. We'll also talk about maybe some fencing options. We can also talk, what may be an initial type of, call it a pilot, long-term pilot versus what may be the longer term vision. I would say the preference would be for raised beds. It's, I think, just cleaner for everybody. There's wood, metal, composite, and then we'll talk about, size, the height. So obviously, I mean, you're all familiar with raised garden beds. The composite ones here on the bottom left are actually what we have in our edible grove. They're really fantastic. We really like them. They are the most expensive option, about $1,000 a piece.
Really? My
The what?
goodness.
Did you move them?
Well, we want them for our edible grove.
Oh, so you want to leave? them?
So, yeah, we want to leave the edible grove. These would be the new ones. Next, what we've seen people do, and I think it's more for maybe flowers or small planters, but you basically take the galvanized, I call them feeding bins. I probably shouldn't. And they make some for gardening. They're resistant to corrosion. There's some positives, but it's also in a metal box, can retain a lot of heat. It's also galvanized, and how people feel about that. Which leads us to wood. I would say generally chemical-free pine is probably the preferred, or cedar. And I showed a couple options, one more obviously decorative and prefab, one a little more, I'll call it rustic, homemade. I don't know if anyone's been by the Baptist church this past summer. The community built some community garden beds there. They're a little larger. I think they're 4x12s, I think is what they ended up being. But this is another pause point to see what your thoughts are, just materials at this point, and what your, I call it, preferences are, or what you'd prefer.
Wood.
Wood.
Yes, wood. Yeah, I think it'd fit in the park better.
So what are we thinking size wise?
I think the ones at the church, aren't they 4x10?
I couldn't remember if Caroline has been in touch with Tom a lot more about the garden. I can
It's a
connect
pretty
with
good
her.
Size, 4x10. So.
I mean, when I talked with her, they have a community garden out by her home, and it's about a 4x8. And she's like, yeah, I mean, you're not growing your household food for
Yeah,
the year out of
that's
that.
not bad either.
But in talking with the
It's
Outgrowing Hunger, they're like,
supplementing.
you're not going, these are going to be supplemental.
Yeah,
Um,
not like a mini farm.
yeah. Or, learning how to grow your own food, or just playing with it.
Maybe a variety of heights for people of different abilities.
Hmm.
Now, I like my tall raised beds now, but I didn't used to. I wanted to be on the ground, but.
See, I would always prefer a tall.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I think some people might actually like them elevated.
Yeah, a lot of the prefabbed ones, here they're 2-ish feet tall. When you get to the composite, it was closer to 3 and about Dais height. Which again, if you're growing corn or something, may be a little too tall, but you can always put in your regulations, let's not do tall stuff. Don't want to block other ones' shade.
Corn in a raised bed.
Yeah, corn, yeah. It
Potatoes.
takes so much water. And
It's been
faith.
done.
Like,
It's
I
been
know, I've
done.
seen it and I'm thinking, there's really good corn down there at the farmer's market.
It's inexpensive.
Turns out to be, yeah.
So more, I'll call this countertop table height,
Hmm.
or maybe half and half, maybe
Yeah.
some
Yeah, you could
feet, some a little.
split them up.
Mhm.
Okay,
These are free, correct?
I think that would be the thought.
Again.
Kind of initially, again, I think we want to dip our toes back into it. Lessons learned, but and being free. So in the past, we'd allow, if you want 1, 2, 3, this would be kind of one per address. Because
I
we
would
want,
say 4x8s.
Mhm.
12 of them, and then it's really, people are saying, gosh, I wish I had one, then we could extend it out and maybe go for,
and keep moving it along.
yeah, and if somebody, like forever, I want a 10-footer. They get first choice at
Maybe we could have an agreement that's signed, which lets them know their specific duty,
Oh, yes.
what they have to do at
Yep.
the end of season.
Yep. or if it's just not working out and they want to walk away, what the expectation is, because it could disqualify you from future years, that kind of thing.
Well, the one over by Gresham City Hall, which is where I had my garden for the longest period of time. Outgrowing Hunger was the one who handled all that. They actually had a person who
Yep.
coordinated all of the city gardens in Gresham. And they do have things that you do sign on and.
Yep.
And there are also days when it's like community, let's clean up the
Clean it up.
garden day. Or they might even have a workshop where they offers free seed packets and things.
Yeah, I think a lot of our concepts were to partner with Outgrowing Hunger.
Oh, okay.
If not
Yeah,
have
they-
them run up, at least partner with them. We also have the Reynolds Transitions Program
Okay.
just over here. And that might be a good opportunity for them to maybe even, have a plot, but also help
Mhm.
with the upkeep and things. So.
Yeah.
One thing about tall raised beds, you guys probably know, they take a lot of soil or a lot of
Fill at the
fill
bottom.
before the soil, yeah. We even drug soil or fill from Hawthorne over to our house to fill these darn beds. Would the city like provide the fill?
They would
Or
be full.
some degree of soil?
We would, either build them, construct them, or if it works out, volunteer day to build them. And also all the soil to fill them. So a gardener's not going to get an empty 4x8, 4x10
No, yeah.
box to try to get bags from Home Depot to fill.
Hey, yeah.
But you're also not going to offer them high quality growing soil necessarily.
Probably either like a 4 or 5-way mix from
Yeah.
Allwood.
Mhm.
Okay,
Good stuff.
yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be fine, yeah.
Now the bottom layer, maybe, well, especially on the deeper boxes, maybe that's more of a
Oh.
a
It doesn't-
fill type, clean
Totally,
fill type.
Totally. You only have to do probably 5 or 8 inches.
Yeah, but then certainly the top portion, a nice 5-way or something. That's what we had at the old garden. Well, Commissioner, he used a small, I think you said small tiller, I think is how you phrased it, which was in fact a tractor larger than what the city had, to help till everything in and reestablish
Oh,
it.
that's nice. A basic question, where will the water be coming from?
So that is a future question. So we'll hold that for the moment.
Oh.
Let's talk fencing really quick because it is a good idea to have it fenced so people don't confuse it with maybe a public space or amenity. This is the current upper right, current fence at City Hall. That nice, it's aluminum, but kind of looks like a wrought iron. It's very expensive and maybe more of a longer term component. And then you have more of a rustic split rail or something, not this tall. Seems to be about a 6-foot tall fence.
Mhm.
But it's nice. It's just, it's clearly delineated. You have some manner of, it's a little more open chicken wire than I think we would want. We'd probably have a little tighter squaring. I know how the Counselor Smith loves her rabbits, and so we
And
want to make sure they can get in there.
Keep the cats out,
Yes, keep small out.
because they love that fresh dirt.
I know I do.
Actually,
But yeah, my question would be, what is the purpose of the fence?
Just to
And
keep,
build-
I mean, help delineate it.
Rabbits out, balls out,
Try, yeah.
yeah, raccoons out.
Not going to prevent everything.
No, but just like a rolling
Soil,
soccer
too.
ball,
Yep.
absolutely. So some of these really loose ones, you definitely wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think kind of, and again, maybe not this height, but staff was
Dogs are-
moving towards more like this bottom right one where you
Yeah, yes.
that has kind of like an open sort of appearance to it, so it's friendlier than the metal one, but it
Yeah.
also has very practical.
Well, and then, from the field perspective, you can still trim along it. I think the inside, we'd have some sort of fabric with probably bark chips.
Yeah.
The previous garden had just metal stakes with chicken wire that made it impossible to edge around it. So we ripped that out. Again, trying to, learn from our past.
You gotta learn from mistakes.
But something like
That's
this.
lovely, yeah.
And I think we could fit that in the budget and create something nice. It's also very easy to extend on and,
Easy to maintain.
yep. Okay, so other stuff. We'll just hit water right now,
Oh,
since that was
thank
the
you.
question. So the whole field is irrigated. We also have
Right,
water at the
right.
building, so it wouldn't be too hard to either add a couple hose spigots. Sorry, let me just go back a couple of slides. So we could, add, maybe a hose spigot, each end, something in the middle. Or we could add it as part of our irrigation system on its own. And so then the beds are just kind of I won't say automatically watered because depending on what people plant, maybe you may be overwatering, you may be missing some of it. But that is a question of, would you prefer, again, starting out a couple hose spigots or actually try to irrigate them?
Those spigots would
Yeah.
be cheaper.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
You can
and-
get a couple hoses on reels and things.
Yeah, one on each end should do it, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that big, yeah.
If you irrigate it, also I think we leave the impression that we're going to take care of it for you.
Yes.
Or
You know,
because
somebody knows it's getting watered
you-
and they don't
Yeah.
have to come over and.
getting water, but then something happens, oh, you didn't water it enough, or you watered it too much versus it's kind of yours to love.
Manage the irrigation as well, yeah.
So a couple hose spigots. Yep.
Mm.
Perfect. I think obviously we'd want some sort of garbage can and an area for, I'll call it green waste.
Mhm.
But in talking about the area for green waste is, would you want it to be more of an on-site composting or just an area people can put their weeds and greens and things and we haul it away as part of our green waste?
Yeah, that composting on site, who's going to take care of that?
Yeah, that's-
If it isn't a
I'd haul it
tumbler, which was one of the options.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but who's going to still
Who's
take?
going to turn it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, that's,
I think our thought was a nice little, wooden bin and you toss your greens in there and we take it out and
Yeah.
goes off to that magical recycler.
Yes.
Perfect. Things like tables, benches.
Maybe a bench or two. Yeah.
there is a bench on the patio out there already. The picnic table.
I mean, there are benches, I call it adjacent, there, but
Yeah.
would you like one in it or just kind of leave it as the garden?
I think a garden.
Yeah, the garden,
Yeah.
I mean, you go there to work, not the.
Yeah,
But.
right.
That might be nice.
That on the community.
This is a working environment. Go play.
Get out.
Yeah, I think benches would probably not be necessary.
I'm curious then if people think, what do people think about a stand-up planting bench? Because I noticed in your materials, you mentioned like a picnic table, as we figure, no, nothing like a picnic
Oh, like a
table.
potting
But if you
thing.
did put a table there, it'd get used as a potting bench.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, I mean, or for like people, if people choose to grow flowers, you're gonna put a vase there, you're gonna do your cuttings, et cetera. So it's something that looks like a stand-up size might, or height
Hmm.
might be useful.
I mean, it's one of those things we can think about as we
Yeah.
build it, as it gets, see what the gardeners want.
Maybe even an extension to the fence. You could even just add a.
Oh,
planting
that's
bench
true.
On the.
Yeah, just
side
like
of
a
the
shelf
fence.
that kind of
Yeah, like a
functions as
shelf.
a
Uh-huh.
potting bench.
Those, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. So sounds like we'll give it a whirl right back here. Sounds like 4x8, but maybe a couple 2-footers closer to, I'll just call it countertop height. To keep it relatively simple, bark chipped, the nice, I'll say split rail fence, but split rail like fence with the wire in between to help keep critters and activities out of it. And it is for working, not playing.
There's probably a stand.
You want to play on the other
Between the
side. of the
boxes
fence and
and
go
all
play
that
some-
stuff.
Yeah, I think you generally want like 4 feet or something so people can get all around it. Oh yeah, and we'll do a couple spigots.
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, so staff will take all that. We'll start really actually crafting the pricing, the options, working with Outgrowing Hunger. And hopefully, I said the goal is we start getting this built and ready for I'll call it latter spring planting season. I think the hope is March, April, but it's April, May.
Under.
Yeah, I just saw the lightning. So on the water usage, is there a way to put like some kind of water timer on that? So people aren't like leaving it.
I mean, short answer is yes. There's always a way to put some kind of timer on it. We'd also want to put a meter on it
Yeah,
and know
Okay.
do too.
what the consumption is and things.
okay,
Good, pretty.
good.
Okay. So, now we got pretty specific with community garden. At this one, we're going to talk a little more broadly because this isn't something happening this spring or this year. We're starting the conversation on what an upgraded or replaced playground could look like. So based on all the research we could do, this one was installed in 1999. So give or take a year, probably either side of that. Now, the average lifespan of this style, which is, it was meant for heavy municipal use, 20 to 30 years. And so we're about there. It's about that time. So this year we started a capital sinking fund to replace it, and we have 120 currently budgeted. Now, how much goes into it will be based partly on this conversation of kind of, it's one of those how much for how much. We could pretty much, if it was just, no, let's just replace the current big structures with something very similar. We're not close. We're not too far away from what that number would be with 120. I mean, it might be 180 with install and everything else. But if you're like, no, we kind of want to elevate, add some new elements, maybe rethink the layout. As you saw in your staff report, now they're much larger, but like Imagination Station was over $800,000. The playground at Fairview Elementary, over $800,000. So it really is as big or little as kind of what your preferences are and what we want to, I'll call it, set up to then, further our process, which will include budgeting, other community engagement, and that kind of thing. But we wanted to start here and say, what are your thoughts? What do you envision for this? So again, we're not final choices. This isn't final configurations, but as we're thinking about replacing this, what do you think of? So part of this is, do we redesign the full layout? Or do we just kind of keep structures more or less where they are, replace those? Are we thinking, gee, we can maybe have too many swings and we can combine swings? Do we want to reuse some of the spring toys or teeter-totters? What other stuff do we want for a playground? I do want to caveat it that just based on how it's built, it's really not economically feasible to expand it. You have the parking lot that's sunken to the north. You've got a restroom to the west, our picnic shelter to the south, and a bunch of trees and a big foundation to the east. So kind of what you see is what you get. Now, I do want to say, I have some photos here. So we do have, the walkway that splits it in half east to west, and then a little one going to the picnic shelter. It's possible to have those removed. It's also just fine to keep them as they are and kind of plan around the chunks. So this is our main playground structure, and it's, call it 5 to 12-year-olds is more or less what it's designed for. And you've got, some slides, a jumpy bridge, tic-tac-toe, more slides. The big kid swings over here, there's 6 of those. As we move over here, there's a picnic shelter for reference, 6 toddler swings. And then you see we call it the tot lot over there because it's a smaller play structure meant for more toddlers. It's also where we have some of our spring toys, teeter-totters, those kind of play items. So when I talk about, do we want to reuse elements, it's really more, do you want to try to incorporate the teeter-totter spring toys that are still great, usable condition and frankly aren't inexpensive. It used to be you could get a spring toy like that little froggy for $800. That little $800 froggy is now $2,200.
Are there any pieces that are really broken down and in need of replacement?
Yeah, this one here, this one here.
Okay.
Because we're getting close to end of life.
Yeah.
And that's when you see like this discolorization here on the plastic. That's not dirt, that's the plastic breaking down. It's very similar. Some of this is some dirt, but a lot of it's actually the plastic breaking down. Still safe, we still inspect it. But if you think, well, we could just replace some of these components, we replaced this slide and these slides about 10 years ago. This one was $8,000. This one was $12,000. So components are expensive. And again, so can be the structures. So you can get structures that you see online for, they're $30,000, $40,000. And those are great for well-managed preschool type programs where it's a limited use, limited hours. When you're in a big municipal quasi suburban urban environment, they need to take a licking. And this one clearly has. I mean, it's served us well. So we want to talk about, the structure, its materials. We want to theme it, different elements. While you can have wood structures, that's clearly Imagination Station. It's not staff recommended. It's a lot more maintenance, a lot of other just, I don't want to say issues, but complications. The current one is a mix of metal and high density plastic. That's what we would recommend, but clearly it's also what you would want to see. And then when we're talking about theming, when I call it basic suburban, you pick any kind of urban suburban park around the country, you will see stuff similar to this. Obviously, this one's more outdated. But you want something different. It's almost if you can dream it, they will build it for you. And I have some examples here of, woodland themed. I don't have it, but there's a barnyard theme, a water theme, an ocean theme. The Woodland Elementary, I think, is like a science theme. So you can theme it to whatever you want. It's just a matter of how much is that going to cost, and is it a custom build? So here's a very much more modern suburban urban play structure. We use this in our budget slide. It has a lot of elements that we have on our current one. You see the tic-tac-toe board, the little climby spiral thing, a little bridge. So this would be essentially, if we were to replace kind of like for like, this would be the modern version of it. Another example of kind of a elevated urban suburban is something like this. This one happens to incorporate the toddler area in with the big kid area, which not sure your feelings of that. I think we've heard a lot of feedback that it's nice having an area for smaller kids and an area for bigger kids. But again, kind of an updated, more modern take.
Dog park, big dog.
As we're getting to themes, we have, I think there's like a treehouse log theme. So it's like you're playing in hollowed out logs and slides and things. When we talk about educational components, also an additional kind of tree themed one I thought was I like the little bears. But what I picked this one because it has some educational components built into it, which you have the different signage and talks about animals or plants. And that's the one at Fairview Elementary talks about space and nature and science. So all of this to say, going back to here, what are just some of your thoughts in replacing, the structure? Do we want to look at, do we need all these toddler swings? Do we need all these big kid swings? Because part of the reason is there are spacing requirements. So if you have swings, you need space front and back. And then you need, space around slides. So if you kind of combine swings, not saying should or shouldn't, just if you were and have just a swing zone here, that leaves more space over here for bigger structure, for example. And then clearly, the toddler area is quite functional kind of as it is. It's just a bit dated. So what
Do you
are
have any user
thoughts?
feedback?
Do what?
Do you have any user feedback?
Nothing
None
scientific.
of us have toddlers, I'm pretty sure. Maybe grandkids, but
When that would be the thought is to, again, get yours ideas what you'd want to see and then build that into actually talking to people using the playground, starting more, spring, summertime. Not a lot of users this time of year.
Well, I have some beginning thoughts. Can we go a little bit, since we're kind of constrained on either side as far as the footprint, can we go a little bit higher?
Potentially.
For the older kids?
I don't know what a safety requirement would be, like how tall you could go for what fall protection you need, both in the surface type or railings or whatnot.
Yeah, so I have a 4-year-old grandson, so when I'm up in Washington, I go to different playgrounds with him, and one was a tower, actually. And it had like really cool features at each level, and when he was certain age, he didn't want to go above like 2 stories. But then when he got a little bit older, he'd go up to the upper part. But it was tremendously popular, like it was just crawling with kids.
wow.
Yeah, they just like that whole idea of tower and, getting,
And climbing.
and climbing and and they had slides. And of course, they had all the safety
Mhm.
safeguards. But anyway, that's a thought. And another thought is, what about the surface
Yep,
rather than hardship?
that's a future slide here.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're
Okay.
good. But yeah, that is a consideration. What is the surface? And we'll have some.
Right.
information on
And
that.
then that kind of goes to my next point. How accessible is our current playground? to kids who may have physical disabilities?
So I'll just jump ahead and talk a
Oh.
little bit about surface right now. So our
Okay.
current surface, why they look like wood chips, are actually engineered wood fibers. And so they interlock, creating an ADA accessible path or surface. When fully, kept up, which we really try to do, got a little behind during COVID, which I mean wasn't uncommon. But when fully kept up, a wheelchair can go over it and it is considered ADA accessible.
Oh, that's great to know, but would parents know that?
We promote it on our website, and then it was actually in, I forget which publication, but it was actually kind of a Portland Metro publication that highlighted accessible playgrounds.
Oh, okay. And is there, I mean, we just kind of defrayed the whole idea of signage, but is there some kind of sign that we could put up? I would
The
inform
short answer is
people?
there is probably some sort of sign. The other part is a bigger question. I'm not sure what of our current features though are full ADA. I know
Ah,
they
okay.
make some new elements that if you're in a
Right.
walker or mobility device, you can still kind of explore around it or through it. We don't really have.
Yeah, that would
that-
be something that I'd like to see incorporated.
Now, certainly with, assistance, whether it's swings or climbing
Sure.
up through it, but they certainly make some new innovative stuff for kids with that need some assistance.
We talked a few years ago about liability. About cost and
Well, yes, it's gonna, I mean,
It's
it's
just
a
like-
big cost,
it's like,
hundreds of thousands.
yes. Yes.
Which is why we're starting now. Because the idea is we'd be building this 3 to 5 years from now. So we kind of get a general understanding of what I'll call it the big vision is, and then we can start refining it through targeted outreach, other community conversations, looping you all back into it. But what would help us right now is kind of how big or how little is this, so we can start targeting, a budget number.
So can you scroll back through
To the which ones,
Yeah. The newer ones?
the newer ones. And it's gonna be
Oh,
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that
Mhm.
appeals to me. I was, it's kind of for a park, the greens, the browns, the kind of wood.
I think of like a Lincoln log. It looks like what a kid would make out of Lincoln.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think swings, the swings that we have here are what I swing on,
Mhm.
I don't know how. Who's ever think more of this type of stuff, not saying take out.
The taller ones don't get used as much as I'll call it the big kid
Mhm.
ones.
So, maybe
So there might be options to kind of condense it.
condense that.
Yeah.
and That's a big row of, but I think the big,
A bigger
Better.
structure.
yeah.
What's the cost on something like that? Do you know?
Something like this one, probably in the ballpark, and I'm ballparking here. And I don't know about installing, because you have to do new footings and things. I'd say
Mhm.
180 to 220. Plus or minus a little bit.
That's a lot bigger than, this would be a combination of the little kids and the bigger kids and then one.
It's actually, this one is relatively close to our big one.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
Just-
relatively. I mean, I think,
Huh. It's just the way it's laid out.
yeah, I think it's the angle of the photo. And like once, I mean, again, I'm not surprised many of you don't walk out and play with the big one.
You could add more.
But I mean, it's not very deep, but it is somewhat long. And this way we can, go a little bit further, maybe a little bit wider, especially how you orient your slides, because that's where you need the
Yeah.
extra buffer zone with kids coming off of slides and things.
I just keep going back to customer feedback. I mean,
Mhm.
I just would want to talk to 20 parents and find out what their kids love and what other parks say about what families in their parks love.
What if they like?
Other thing to maybe keep in mind is to offer something to this, in this community, that Imagination Station and Fairview School does not. Might be a direction as well, something that would be popular and special to this site. I
I
don't know
think
what
we
that
reach
is.
out to kids.
Talk with the kids,
Kids.
from free candy. For
Yeah. Say, hey, what do you think of these?
These
You know?
swing things after.
Yeah, I remember my kids were growing up, we didn't have a playground nearby. They climbed on boulders, they climbed trees, they walked across tree trunks, you know.
I should have pulled up old photos. It was a sewer pipe was the big feature of our old playground. I had
Yeah.
those same swings and a sewer pipe.
You know, yeah, it was awesome.
My kids live near Olympia and they often go to the Children's Museum. And one of the most popular things in town for little kids to do is to go to a fabricated stream that's right near the,
Yeah, that's nice too.
right,
Water is.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I mean,
talk me through what's the fabricated?
it's a constructed stream. It's not natural.
Recirculating water probably.
Yeah, and
Oh, so it actually is water in it.
yeah, and so it actually has all the looks and sounds of a stream, but it's like clean.
Then you
Um,
gotta filter it though. too.
Yeah, and the kids just love that. So I don't know if we could incorporate just some flat out natural things, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
rocks, like a really large rock for the kids to climb on.
Yeah,
You know, boy, they can just have fun with that.
and yeah,
There-
Manufactured tree stumps.
Not quite the same as a rock.
We've got an angry tortoise.
And then,
no.
I think kids would like that.
maybe this isn't the conversation to bring this in, but is there a way for our park, maybe not here, but in our park to incorporate some kind of, it's common in some parks where there are exercise
Oh,
stations.
fitness station.
Yeah,
So
fitness
fun,
stations.
fun fact, 20 plus years ago, we had all of those around the walking trail.
Mhm.
They got heavily vandalized
Yeah.
repeatedly
Yeah,
over and
Oh,
over.
that's too bad. When I lived in Taiwan, they would incorporate it right next to the little children's
Mm.
play structure because so often the grandparents took care of the youngest in the family because they all lived together. And so the grandparents would be doing their exercise while the little grandchildren were playing on the play structure.
Yeah,
And then they do their Tai Chi, which I was.
Because we even had a bike
Amazing.
fix-it station right by the restroom near the basketball court, and we couldn't keep that from being vandalized just repeatedly. Now, are there things that we could do to maybe, steps or some of the more simplistic elements potentially, but they need to be vandal resistant, which is when you pay the high dollars for these, that's what you're buying. You're buying their liability and the vandal resistance when you're buying these, six-figure playground structures.
Right, right.
What else do you need, Greg? You
Well,
have-
I think one last question, surface treatment. So I want to get back to that because we talked a little bit about it, how currently it's the engineered wood fiber.
Mhm.
The other common one is the pour in place rubberized surface. Very expensive initially, and it does have a lifespan. I say about 10 years now. Your areas by your swings and slides, you maybe get 5. Your areas off in the corner probably get 15. That's why you kind of average it at 10. Staff try to just do this for what it would take to do a rubberized surface for that playground. It's probably over $250,000, $300,000, because you'd have to dig out all the engineered fiber that's been there for several years now. You're basically building a road base is what you have to then build back up is, the rock and everything. And then you pour asphalt and then the rubberized surface over that. So initial cost is very, very expensive. And then once you need to maintain it, cut out your section and then re-pour it. So your maintenance, it's not maintenance free like some people think it is. So while wood chips, obviously you can get divots, you can get little holes and things. And yeah, you're going to spend a few thousand every year. It's buy a lot of chips for $300,000.
Yes, you can.
That all to say, though, certainly happy to have that discussion and your thoughts, feedbacks, as well as it certainly sounds like you want to hear from parents and kids, if I've heard that correctly.
So,
I
yeah,
think go ahead.
I'm so sorry. You had mentioned during COVID that you weren't maintaining the wood fibers. What kind of maintenance does that require?
We try to blow them in about twice a year. So we do like a big load and then we spot treat it
Oh,
again by
okay.
your swings and slides. But COVID, because of playground, we couldn't open it from a state law
Well,
perspective.
sure, sure.
It just kept deteriorating and deteriorating. So it actually took quite a bit to bring it back up.
Oh, okay.
If you
I
look
say
right,
just wear and tear then.
wear and tear, they break down. And so
Yeah.
if you were to go out, well, go out there when it's not dark and raining, by the main structures, actually you see it from the photos. These were done about a month ago, relatively flat, nice and squishy, especially by the swings. When you get back, you can't see it. It's back in this corner, starts to kind of sink off because, well, it's in the back corner with no amenities. So again, we try to target, keep it close to the curb height. So you can see here, it's relatively close, but over time that will continue to sink. So there's a bigger gap between where the walkway is and where the chips start. So those are, I'll call it the targeted areas we try to do. We also, I don't think you can see it. Under the swings, we do have kind of rubber pads we put there too. Chips obviously get on them, but that just helps with the cushion and, helping prevent it from digging bigger holes.
Right, right.
I'd spend more money on the playground equipment than I would.
The surface.
Fibers they should be.
So if I could recap what I think I've heard, sounds like, well, A, talk to people first. Seems like, yeah, let's keep with the wood chips. Let's keep, big kid structure, little kid area, depending on usage, to see if we can't combine the swings to get a bigger structure. And it sounded like, maybe theming's cool, but just as happy with just a nice color coordinated, freshened stuff with a lot of amenities, whether it's maybe some additional height, things to climb on. Am I kind of capturing, I'll call it the essence?
Yeah, and again, if we could bring in something that would be accessible to kids who are
Yes,
with physical
some sort of
disabilities.
ADA elements. Yes.
And if we could throw in a zip line, I would love it. Do you have the little kid zip lines where
So
you
we-
barely have
We
your.
used to
feet
have
off the
one
ground?
here. They are a bear to maintain. They break so
Are they?
often. Yeah. Because as a kid, I loved those too.
I know.
Kind of the metal ring.
Yeah, and you just get your feet off the ground. and Fly. It's kind of
I'm
fun.
wondering if the technology hasn't changed, but we used to
Yeah.
have one and it just,
I'm just thinking for the bigger kids, to have something that they can look really cool
Yeah.
on, like the 10-year-olds or so.
so you definitely you want some cool features.
Some cool
You want some
features.
height, some accessibility, just, I think, fresh and clean for the aesthetic.
The look and feel of this one is just very Wood Village. I think
Yes.
maybe that's,
Right,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want it looking like a circus.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. No rainbow
Circus
colors,
theme.
yeah.
Well, the problem with specific themes is, after it's been around 5 years or so, and the kids around here,
They've seen
I
it.
don't even notice it anymore. Whereas if it's more generic, yeah, and you can notice the woods more around the structure.
Yeah, I guess that was the other caveat I should have said. Not really keen on removing the trees.
No,
No.
not an option.
I actually think it's a cool feature for the playground to have some.
Totally is.
Fabulous.
Okay, well, I think certainly have, I'll call it the theme, and then, yeah, we'll probably do more springtime and the summertime talking with kids and parents, but this helps us get that budget figure sorted. And so again, our target within 5 years, is it 3? It's hard to say, but I think that would be the goal. So around 3 years from now, we're talking about, here's the final design, and does it have all the elements that you want?
And budget wise, if you're not going to build that sign, you get $6,000, maybe you could reallocate.
There we go.
Whatever, every dollar counts.
Yeah, buy a really fabulous folder.
Okay, well, this is a part of the meeting where I'm happy to answer other questions that you may have, wherever the trail may take us.
Oh, this is gonna need some work
Yes,
Ah,
it does.
in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna bring up a boardwalk. So because probably all of us, stroll around the park, but there's that one area on the I think it's southeast end that is always boggy. Like it
Mhm.
takes the driest day in August or September for it not to be boggy. Is there a way that we could put a boardwalk in there and just kind of accept the fact that we can't fight Mother Nature anymore rather than going up to our ankles in water?
Let me just make sure
You're
we're talking about the
about-
same.
It's down there by
area.
the, what do you?
By the
call it?
school.
No, by the garden down there?
Yep, the edible, the
Yeah.
edible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one is just always wet and
Yep.
Right in there.
Like, yeah, we kind of
It's improved.
this
a
area is
lot.
okay, but
5
yeah,
years
kind
ago.
of this stretch from this trail.
Yeah, even
of starts
today,
there
it's
and then
already
through
starting
here.
to,
We got a heavy duty rain.
yeah, but I mean, basically it's damp.
I
almost.
say it's actually, this used to create a little lake,
Yeah.
not that too many years ago.
It's a lot better than it was. so-
It's
I'm
better.
wondering if that'd be a good section to consider putting in boardwalk.
Probably.
Go with
Probably the
it.
disc golfers, at least their families who don't play disc golf and go wandering through the.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily need to be elevated like the other ones are. You're just kind of almost like an, say, at grade. I mean, you're just inches off the ground.
Yeah, yeah,
versus- Yeah.
And then the other pieces, I never remember the name of the apartments. They're on the other end of the park.
Cottonwood or Tree Hill?
Yeah, the tree hill. Okay. You know, the entryway to the park from that's bark dusted.
This one? This is the Tree Hill one. This is the Cottonwood one.
Oh, boy. I got it oriented.
Here we go.
The tree.
Off-
Find your
right-
house,
Oh, yeah, Yeah. So it's the one off of here where the trails intersect. Oh, yeah, it's probably right there.
I can't see.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, move my cursor with your words. Where am I going?
Okay, you go down and just, yeah, right there.
Right here?
Yeah. Robbie, our
Mhm.
wonderful parks guy, he says the rain always washes all the bark dust out. And for sure, it just creates like it was, again, today when I was out walking, it creates like almost like a
The
little,
channel.
it carved the little, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if that might be a good place to consider putting in another boardwalk
I think,
instead of him having to constantly go and refill the bark dust.
again, probably part of a larger conversation, but again, looking at our current boardwalks and the needs that they have.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
You know, we've been screwing down boards all summer.
Yeah,
They're getting towards end of life.
and they're getting slick.
Yeah. I think there's a larger conversation about our trails and, you know, both maintenance as well as what are some of our options, you know, maybe some targeted areas. We also have some ones with some big roots that, I mean, you try to mound your chips and things, but eventually they break down or stuff moves. So we certainly have some challenging areas in our trails. I think it's worth a conversation of where those are at, what are the options, and then kind of what's the priority for project costing and things.
Okay, and while I'm talking about like small infrastructural things, in that same area where, right next to is that Cottonwood or Tree Hill? I don't remember.
So Tree Hill's by the disc golf.
Oh, yeah. no, this-
Cottonwood is by the Ivy.
Okay, that one. Okay, there's where the trails intersect. There's a dog.
Waste station.
Yeah, there's the dog poo bag station and there's just a small garbage can. And those small garbage cans say dog poo bags only or something to that effect.
We've
I
known we
think-
need to add more garbage cans throughout our trail
Yeah,
system,
I was-
especially with the disc golf and things.
Yeah.
That's really added.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask
Yep.
for. That would be great to have one there.
Yeah, we need a few more
Because-
garbage cans
because-
along.
If you can't put your garbage there, then where can you put it? The only
We
other,
know where they put it.
well, I know. I mean, the appropriate, yeah, well, besides that,
Yeah.
but I mean, if it's larger than
Yeah,
that.
we've talked about getting some more garbage receptacles through our
Okay.
trail system.
And then there's a one, it's closer in, but it's had a broken lid for
That's down by City Hall.
down by near where we're thinking about putting the raised beds in.
Oh,
You know, there's one, that.
Yeah, I think it's
one-
kinda right-
The hinge
Right
is
there, right there, right there. Get that.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
like a broken hinge and I'm wondering, well, that, it doesn't really seem suited well to its purpose ananyway. It's like this slender little
Impressed
hinge.
that the lid is still there, even though it's not really.
I know. How it didn't become some kind of disc, and a disc golf course is beyond me. Kind of weird disc, but no, but I mean, it's and broken. I'm wondering if that's really not the best
No, it's not. that.
designed for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh-oh, there goes your $6,000 in new trash. cans.
yeah, and a new trash.
Sorry.
No, that's no joke. Some of those trash cans they're not cheap,
Yeah.
but they take a beating. That's the point.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they
I'd rather
do.
trash in cans than other.
That's why we put them on Halsey and Arata Road. We've had a lot less litter since we actually put in garbage cans for people.
Oh, fabulous.
It's
Oh,
funny how that works.
cool. Well, anyway, thank you.
Yes, else.
I reported a homeless person today. Do you know if that got resolved? Or if that ever got to your desk or not? Probably not.
It typically doesn't get to my desk
think
unless,
so.
unless there's, say, a reason to.
No. There was no, it just was it was a setup tent in
Oh,
the shrubs. Yeah.
oh,
Okay, I called. I'm sure somebody took care of it. I haven't seen one ever, like in a long time.
kind of, yeah, right now is, so summer's kind of the peak for campers and things as, you know, people are just they're traveling, moving about. When we get to more this season, there's a reason they call this area home. And so they tend to be here. But that's where we're also working with the county, the Sheriff's Office Hope team and trying to get more resources and supportive services. And
Right.
we're building towards it. So certainly not what you see in other parts of our region. But also that doesn't mean we can't just not ignore it. We can't ignore it.
Right.
But we're trying. Else.
The toughest problem.
The what?
The toughest problem.
Oh, what is it or homeless
Managing.
is?
Managing houseless population.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so we're working with the county. We're getting there. You know, they're a big organization with a lot of their goals and we have our needs too. And
Mhm.
you probably read my weekly updates.
I do.
Once in a while.
Oh, well,
Pumpkin Fest was a great success on Saturday. Not sure if anyone popped over, but we have 1,800 guests.
I was going to, my back just
Wow.
went on me.
Did everybody get a pumpkin like all the kids?
We ran out of pumpkins at
Quicker than he could.
11 after 1.
Want to-
Wow.
So it lasted pretty good, you know, ended at 2. So that wasn't too bad. Yeah, we had 300 family bags, 600 trick or treat bags, I think 18-ish. Kind of vendors handing out candies and other goodies. The activities were a huge success. So great event.
Fantastic.
We're thinking of in December, we're talking with the council about Easter egg hunt. Thinking if something more like that event would be more suited for Easter instead of a large hunt. Could you do more enrichment engagement? Again, that's a council discussion in December, but certainly that resonated with the broader community. A lot of people from Portland, which was a little surprising. So people were coming out here for the event, which is
Oh,
great.
that's cool.
Also working with Cultivate Initiatives, we're going to try to get some days called the winter season in here, help remove some ivy. So you don't have to do it on your own on your Saturday days.
Well, thank you.
So hopefully come springtime, there's a lot less ivy through there. Right now, they're still kind of cleaning up our rights of way. So we have them do 238th, Halsey, hold them off the north side of Arata. If you've seen all the bioswales are dug out, the Multnomah County is doing that. I don't say realize, but they weren't designed or planned appropriately to be sustainable. And so they hired a company to come in and redo them. The contracting will be over time. And so their current state will probably be like that for a while, which not the prettiest, but honestly, I think is better than what it was,
Better than what it was. Yeah.
which is kind of sad.
Sorry to wrap around to our garden beds conversation, but something just dawned on me. Will it be a requirement for people who have access to those beds that they be Wood Village residents?
I think that'd be the priority, you know, that goes to Wood Village first. If there happen to be after a period of time still open ones, then sure, we'd explore that. That's how the old one was Wood Village first until, I can't remember, it was like some date in May, I think. And then if there are extras, fine. Else?
Oh. Have anything?
Yeah, great conversations, great feedback. Thank you so much for your time.
the banners that are in front of the people. When in front of their home, they should.
So
home, they should take.
Ideally, yes.
No.
The county though, because these are managed stormwater facilities, they didn't want people touching them. And I think they reaped what they sowed with that. And the idea moving forward is to help educate those living along here how to help maintain them. Not that they're 100% responsible, unlike other parts like Halsey, you have your planning strip, you are responsible for that and things, but because these are a little different, I think the county's just going to ask for help maintain them. Like, hey, you see a blackberry, you can go ahead and get rid of that, but don't take a weed whacker to the whole thing.
Don't weed eat them or pull them out.
Yeah.
Grow back.
So I think, again, they had some lessons learned, and I think they're going to try to do it a little differently moving forward.
One more random question.
I have a
What do you
bizarre
know?
answer.
On Halsey, across from the byway,
Mhm.
what is the deal with that property that's
Right
like
here.
an abandoned old?
Blue gas station. That is Ken Myers. He lives there. He calls it home. It was his household home, I believe. He and his family had owned several homes in the original village over the years. Still owns, I think, 3. He's been offered a lot of times to buy this. He said that's his place where he is gonna live out his last. We did connect with Curtis Burnett. He's been able to acquire some of Ken's properties and rehab them, get them back on the market. He's helping Ken maintain all this stuff. So it's actually a nice relationship between he and Ken.
It's kind of an older man.
Yeah, very much. He used to ride around the city in his ride-on mower. He'd kind of go to the gas station over here. So he's still around, we check on him every now and again, connect with Curtis every now and again. But I believe once he passes, all of his real estate assets will be on the market. I know there's a lot of interest in this one in particular.
Mhm.
Big piece of property. Yeah.
Not much going on this lot here that's for sale. It's for sale 300,000. It's very difficult. It's below grade on Halsey. There's no access to Halsey. Really is more of you combine parcels and do a larger development kind of thing, but it is a for sale and we haven't had any calls on it. Byway's doing well. So if you want a little quick update, so Sushi Ninja here, they've got their C of O, they're done with their improvements. They're just doing what they need to do to open. I
Did
think
you say a sushi place?
Sushi Ninja.
Oh, yeah.
It's this one right on the corner.
All right.
Really cool theming inside. They did some nice decor and things. We were told sometime November is when he was planning to open it. So we'll see. Kai Coffee, the coffee shop on this end, again, they've got their C of O. They're done with their improvements. Just kind of it's on them to when they want to open. Fish Forever, which is the suite right over here, just signed off on their signed package today. So I'm sure that sign will pop up in the next few weeks. You know them. Full plans are ready to do their improvements whenever they do their improvements. And as you saw, I think it was week before last, burgers and buns or buns and dogs,
Burgers and bun.
buns and burgers. I had a, it's a kind of an own independent hot dog, hamburger joint, going to be going. I haven't had any tenant improvement permits yet, but hopefully we'll see those shortly. So
Good diversity along there then.
yeah, the Byway Market's open, very friendly. Two Amigos been open for a while. It's pretty tasty. So a lot going on there.
What's the fish business? Is it fresh or cook? Is it a restaurant or
No,
They're pets.
pets? What?
it's
Oh, that's right. It was
It's a
something
aquarium.
weird. Yeah, okay.
Fish.
It's a
her claim she's
fish.
I don't want to say YouTuber, but she's an online,
What do
Oh,
you
yeah.
call it?
not, I don't want to say influencer, but
Kinda.
yeah,
Personality.
Online sales is her primary thing.
video. She has like several million followers like on TikTok, YouTube from the Portland area. Her claim to fame was custom made feeding rings for fish tanks. So the fish tanks she has have a lot of the plant life that grow on the top. And so she didn't like just the plain circular feeding ring. So she custom designed feeding rings and she has all these different fish. And this will be a place to buy your aquarium accessories, fish. I don't know.
That's okay.
Cool. I saw the plans. It's really cool.
Very nice girl.
Yeah, I think knows fish very well and is learning what it takes to have like a brick and mortar.
Business, yes.
Oh, that means she won't be there long.
Did,
Possibly.
I think she does actually very, very well.
Okay.
Yeah, she's.
did I read that we're gonna have a Chick-fil-A in Wood
Yeah.
Village?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Chipotle.
approved over 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's. oh,
Right
good.
here.
Oh, thankfully. Okay. 'Cause it
It's,
seems
it's
to me
gonna go right here. No, so we've got, Chipotle's here. So this is the vacant
Oh, okay.
parcel there. We're waiting on their corrections to the permit package. So hopefully they get those in, I mean, kind of at any time. And then once they get approved, they could build. They got land use approval already. It's a drive-through or walk-up only, no dine-in. So
We're gonna have a signal there
I've never actually been in one, but all I know about them is that the lines just wrap around and around and around. and-
well, they're very efficient though,
Yeah.
at like moving people
they?
through. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we have a signal there someday, I suspect.
Probably one thing with the county right now, this came up at the design review hearing with is, as you all know, this is Wood Village Boulevard. It does this very funky
Yeah,
merge
that's
that then opens into a right turn lane and you don't know, is this a left?
Right.
Is this a meridian? So the county is working on basically a restriping from this intersection to Gleason.
Oh, that's good.
Should
That
do a
is-
four-way stop there.
Yeah, I think in the future here
Yeah,
in
right
Yes, yeah.
have to
Mhm.
look
Right near the
differently as things develop.
Yeah.
Or a different, maybe, I don't know if there'd be a way to have one driveway
That whole
access
thing
for
there is
both
really
restaurants,
funky.
but maybe that doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting rid of driveways, unfortunately. Nothing new from the Grand Ron, which, obviously this whole parcel, and that's going to drive
Right.
a lot of other
Oh, yeah, sure,
improvements.
sure.
We have the council November 21st. I talked with their economic development directors about 3-4 weeks ago. It was in the weekly. I think they're very open to getting something going here, if not in small phases or the like. They've pulled back on their gaming application, so they're looking at non-gaming opportunities. Sent them some updated marketing materials about area incomes, entertainment spending, et cetera. So very hopeful that we get, I think, a nice mix of uses, maybe a bit of housing, small shop opportunities. I would love a giant arcade.
That'd be great. One more question. So I'm taking this opportunity to ask all these crazy things. Maybe you have any feedback already, if you know if the county's gotten feedback on the Hogan to 242nd Hill.
Mhm.
That what I've been noticing is that since there's so much traffic going down that hill, there's a light about midway up that says, if this is flashing.
Yeah, it
prepare
doesn't
to
work.
stop. Doesn't work.
No.
It's always jammed. And so people just keep going unless it's
Or it
flashing.
flashes and there's no one there.
Yeah, there's never no one.
Oh, no, I in the morning time on my
Okay.
way here, it'll be flashing and
Yeah.
I always go slow down.
Yeah,
it,
who's,
but
can I mean, I'd be happy to contact somebody if you just want to. somebody-
They've been in.
they know. I think it should be on almost all the time because more often than not, you hit
It's-
traffic.
I say it's backed up right about to
Yeah, it's kind of in
here.
the blind spot.
So as you're rounding it, it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But so it is on their.
they're aware that it's not optimal.
Thank you.
Doesn't function as intended.
That happens.
Thanks,
Fine.
Greg, for listening to all of our little
Yeah,
questions.
thank you.
You and I adjourn this meeting.
No, wait, no, I'm kidding.
Agenda items only.
Sorry.
Our crosswalk right here is in design. So I have the flashing beacons right there.
Oh, really?
Thank you, everybody.
Where is that?
So Wood Village Boulevard, this is
Oh, I see it.
Riverwood.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Oh, good.
good. That's really needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those other ones have been great on Halsey.
love them,
Yeah.
love them.
In and out at Yazi's, is that right?